Hello everyone and welcome to our class. So today I will be discussing to you about the nature and form of a contract of sale as a preliminary discussion. 大家好，我叫花咪。我 charot lang eh. Okay, so first and foremost, we will be talking about the nature and characteristics of a contract of sale. So we will first start with a definition of a contract of sale. So what is a contract of sale? Anyone? Charot. Okay, so ako rin mag-discuss. So, padayon taanim. So, by the contract of sale, one of the contracting parties obligates himself to transfer the ownership and to deliver a determinate thing, and the other party to pay a price certain in money or its equivalent. So later on, as we progress, we will be discussing the different essential elements of a contract of sale, and then we will be discussing how an owner transfers ownership of the thing, or how the seller will transfer ownership of the thing, which is subject matter of a contract of sale, and then how the other party, the buyer, will pay a price, and what does price or its equivalent mean. Okay, so for now we will be discussing about the nature of a wonderful contract. Okay, kung muaw-aw ang iro, laban na yun taan ni bahala na ng mga iro. Okay, so a contract of sale is a contract in itself. So, diba, the definition of a contract is that it is a meeting of the minds between two persons whereby one binds himself with respect to the other to give something or to render some service. But in this case, in a contract of sale, you have two parties. You have the buyer and you have the seller. So, the seller will transfer ownership and deliver the thing. On the other hand, the buyer will have to pay a sum certain in money or its equivalent. Okay, so that's it, diba? Very simple. So one of the very basic things that you have to remember is a definition of a contract of sale, because later on you will be asked, is this a sale? Is there a valid sale? So by that definition, you will answer. You will be able to answer if that particular incident or that particular thing is a sale or not a sale, if it's valid or invalid, etc. Okay, now let's go to the elements of a contract of a sale. So for the elements, because it is a contract, remember the three essential elements of a wonderful contract. COC, College of Commerce, Clash of Clans, charot. No. C, consent. O, object. And another C is your and the other C is your cost or consideration. So you have COC. So for consent, it is important that there must be meeting of the mind. So that is consent, diba? And consent means that there is offer and then acceptance. So the offer must be met by an acceptance. So dili pa na ang offer imuhang pakapinan og laing offer. So dili na siya pwede, because in that case there is no meeting of the minds. There is what we call a counter offer. So meron na siya og manag-uyab, no, managday kanang uyab ko ni mo dahay, sukta ko dahay, and then if mingon gani si dahay nga okay, then that is acceptance, that is consent. If maingon siya na pwede unya na lang ini-graduate na ako tika sugton, then in that case that is a counter offer bash. So wala pay perfection, dili pa mo uyab. Okay, wala pay consent. Next is, that's the letter C, so ito ang COC. Next is your sing-dong O, object or subject matters. In a contract of sale, the object must be definite, or it must be determinate or capable of being determined. So that's your object or subject matter. And then the next is your cost or consideration, which is the price certain in money or its equivalent. What is price certain money or its equivalent? It will be discussed later on. Okay, so that's the elements. And then you have the different natural and accidental elements. But before that, we will go to the stages of a contract of sale. So there are actually 3 stages, diba? As again, in general, a contract has 3 different stages. You have NPC, negotiation, perfection, and consummation. So what happens in negotiation? Negotiation, that's where the parties will indicate their interest in a contract. So that's where they say, oy, mamaligya ako o tumbler. For example, akong ibaligyan ako ang tumbler from Korea. Yeah. And then and then the other party will say, oh, how much? And then you will say, 1,200. Okay, sige. Okay. So that's negotiation. That's when you will express your interest to buy something or to acquire something. Okay, and then you go to perfection. What happens in perfection is that there is concurrence of the essential elements of the sale, which is the meeting of the minds of the parties, and then there is also meeting of the minds as to the object and as to the price. So in perfection, if you agree nga, if the buyer will say nga, okay, 1 to call, diba sa Korean, call, diba? And then, so meaning nag-agree na mo na this Starbucks tumbler will be sold for 1,200 pesos. Dili won, diba? Kay basin og mairok ta dira sa price certain in money kitcha. 1 to nya humanan a Korean won dayto, Diyos ko Lord, alkansi ka besh kay ang 1 to nga Korean won kay kuno na siya. 600. Basta 1,200 divided by 20. Di na ko kay balo mo top lock og calculator in my brain. So, yeah, 600. So, alkansi ka. So, dapat 1 to Philippine peso. Okay? So, yeah, that's it. And then, after that, you have consummation. In consummation, dili ni si mama no nga na consummation kay wala ka ng trabaho sa balay, wala ka ni tabang. In consummation, that it begins when the parties perform their respective undertakings under the contract of sale, culminating in the extinguishment thereof. So, in consummation, that's when you will consummate your sale. Ingat-ingat ta diri sa mga ato ang mga watpaders, no? Kay lang naraban na yung mga lain nga consummation na pasabot dito dapita. Anyway, so in consummation, that is when the parties will now perform their respective obligations. So the buyer will have to will have to pay 1,200 and the seller will have to deliver this wonderful Korean Camerlu Starbucks tumbler from Ensol Tower. And then, after that, the sale will now be extinguished because successful naman ang inyuhang transaction. Okay? Majayo. Okay, after that, any questions? If you have questions, kindly comment down below and don't forget to subscribe. Charot! Okay, so now we'll go to the characteristics of a contract of sale. So as what your book has said, there are several characteristics in a contract of sale. You have consensual because it is perfected by mere consent. So by the time that the other party, the buyer or the seller will consent, both of them will consent actually. That's when the contract of sale is already perfected. Okay, it is perfected by mere consent, consensual. That is opposed to a formal contract or a solemn contract wherein that contract is perfected only if you have executed or if you have put into writing. Okay. Next, it is bilateral. Why is it bilateral? Anyone? So it is bilateral because both of the parties will have two things. They have obligations. Both of them have obligations to do something. So it's not only unilateral na, isa lang ang kailangang gumawa. It's bilateral because they are bound by obligations dependent upon each other. So, yeah. They are bound to fulfill obligations reciprocally towards each other. The seller will have to deliver and transfer ownership and the buyer to pay the price. So, mana siya sa relationship pa, give and take, no? So, mana siya. Next is onerous. It imposes a valuable consideration. So, as opposed to gratuitous. So, in a contract of sale, it's onerous because you give a price. But then, in a gratuitous contract, like for example, in a contract of donation, you don't give a price. You know, the what you call this? The consideration thereof is the love, the care, the comfort, the thankful heart. That's a consideration there. Okay, but again, in a contract of sale, there is a price certain in money or its equivalent, and that is the consideration, making it onerous. Ano sa ganito? Onerous. Charot. It rhymes with dangerous. Layo kayo mag-online, no? Kaya ka na, ako rin nag-story-story sa akong kaugaling yung laban. Lingit ka dira, girl. Okay, and then next, it's nominate. I nominate, diba, sa bahay ni Kuya na I nominate po, Kim Chiu po, kasi lumabas po siya ng bahay. Bigyan ko po ng 2 points. Charot lang. Nominate, when we say nominate, there is, this particular contract has a name under the civil code, and the name is sale. Para sa agency, na siya name na agency. Para sa pledge, na siya name na pledge. Diba? But barter, wala siya specific name daw. So, diba? Uso kayo ng barter. Hi, Cebu Barter Community. Charot. So, shout out naman. Okay. So, yeah, it has a name and it is a contract of sale, unlike fascia at fascias, fascia at des, duot des, diba, duot des, that's barter, duot fascias, fascia at des, etc. Aside from it being nominate, it's also principal, dili supervisor, charot. It's principal because it can stand on its own. A contract of sale is a strong independent contract. It can stand on its own. So principal versus accessory, if it's an accessory contract, it is dependent upon a principal. Once a principal is extinguished, automatically the accessory contract is extinguished. But take note that a contract of sale is a principal contract, meaning it can stand on its own. It doesn't need any other contract for it to be able to stand. Okay, it's a strong independent contract. Now we will distinguish sale from agency to sell, etc. So questions so far? If you have questions, kindly comment down below. Charot lang. Kindly comment on what my next video will be. A, choose alangan. A, padong pag-agency. B, credit transactions. Or C, balik to sa sale. So, sale, according to Article 1466, in constituting a contract containing provisions, characteristics of both the contract of sale and the contract of agency to sell, the essential clauses of the whole instruments shall be considered. So, it's not enough that you will say, oh, this is, you will label a particular document. Let's say, for example, this document, which is a blank document, scammer loader. So, okay, here it goes. So, this one is a contract, but this is my contract when I was court concession officer. So, what Article 1466 means is that, you know, there is sometimes in a contract like this one, this is a contract. You will have there contract of sale or contract of agency to sell. What will govern is not only what is not the title itself, no, but what will govern the entire contract, what will govern, okay, nag-away ang mga ito. What will govern the contract itself, what will determine whether it's a contract of sale or a contract of agency to sell, is the clauses contained in the entire contract. So you have to read the entire contract, diba? Nantsaka na siya sa last part. Sorry kayo. You have to read the entire everything for you to know the intention of the parties. Okay? So, just a quick discussion. In a sale, the buyer receives the goods as the owner. However, in an agency to sell, the agent receives the goods as the goods of the principal who retains ownership therein. In a sale, the buyer has to pay the price. In an agency to sell, the agent has simply to account for the proceeds of the sale that he may make on the principal's behalf. In sale, the buyer cannot return the object sold, but in an agency to sell, he can actually return it. The agent can return the object in case he is unable to sell the same to a third person. In a contract of sale, medyo saba kayo amo ang dog. naa sila yung mga nag-meeting pasad ang mga dog, no? Nag-online meeting sad sila. So ato silang pasagdaan, may tagmadunggan ra ko ninyo. In a contract of sale, the buyer can deal with the thing sold as he pleases, being the owner, and in an agency to sell, the agent in dealing with the thing received must act and is bound according to the instructions of the principal. So I think you already understand the difference between agency to sell and contract of sale. Basically, in a contract of sale, you have a buyer and a seller. But in an agency to sell, you have a buyer and a seller, and then an agent. So, kailangan natin ng pen. Saan na yung pen? Naman ko yung pen diri kanina. Pen, di sarapin, di kutsilyo, di armasin, how, di karaw, di bato, susunod, kailangan mag-prepare na gid ko. But then, ako rin siyang gi-record and then, didiri-diritso, gid na siya. Kaya wala na ko yung panahon. Yan na pa yung mga dog na nagsig-aw-aw. So, please bear with me. This is a wonderful illustration of your sale versus your agency to sell. So, for those of you those of you were not under me before, so you will understand na I am a frustrated kanang painter, and no, I did not paint that. I did not also paint that. That's puzzle, and yeah, I did not assemble that one. This one I did not paint, so I did not do anything. So let me draw. Okay, so tadadan. T dot. Okay, buyer and seller. Okay, this is impromptu drawing, and so we have a very nice drawing. Wow, what a great drawing. Okay, so amo arong iring. Okay, so buyer and seller. This is your normal contract of sale. What will happen in a contract of agency to sell is that there is a third person. Mura sa inyohang relasyon, diba? And then this third person is called the agent. Tadang! Agent X44. In a normal contract of sale, what happens is that the ownership is transferred from the seller to the buyer. So, ma-transfer ang ownership directly because there are only two parties, the buyer and the seller. And then, the buyer will have to pay the price, the seller will transfer ownership. End of the story. But in an agency to sell, you have here a third person who is an agent. So what happens is that the agent acts for and in behalf of your wonderful seller. Okay? So the agent will actually receive the goods coming from the seller, and then later on the agent will sell this ultimately to the buyer. Okay, so most common example is kanang sa mga cellphone, di ba? Uso man kaayo ron ang kanang mga cellphone. So for example, you have this one, a cell phone. Okay, a Samsung phone. So diba? May ganun din, diba? A Samsung phone. So, you do not necessarily buy from Samsung itself. You don't go to Korea and then go to Korea. Hello, nak papalit akong cellphone. No, you actually go to stores which are selling these Samsung phones, and then these stores are actually agents of your seller. So they are holding it, they will receive the goods, and then the person who will retain and then Samsung basically retains ownership thereof. So depende po na siya sa ilahang contract, but basically kung naman na siya, diba, Samsung Philippines, and then na sila yung mga agents, the agents will sell these to you, to us, consumers. So, mo na siya. One thing that you have to remember in this illustration is that the agent will not own the goods that are being sold. So even if the agent will possess the subject matter of the contract, it does not automatically mean that the agent is the owner of those goods. Okay, because the agent has the responsibility, has the obligation to sell them to the eventual buyers, which is atong example sa cellphone kita. nga mga consumers. If dili gali siya mahalin, dili gali siya matinda, the agent will have to return the goods to the original seller, which is the Samsung Philippines. Okay? So, mo na siya. But if this is normal wala pa ni si agent, so automatic na nga the seller, if iyang i-transfer ang ownership, if iyang i-deliver ang thing to the buyer, then there is already transfer of ownership. Because in sales, general rule is delivery will transfer ownership from the buyer to the seller. No. From the seller to the buyer, because ang seller man may na obligation to deliver. Okay, and the buyer has obligation to pay. Okay, so that's it. That's the tweet. Any questions? Ask your classmates. Charot. Adto sa barangay. Pangutan na sa barangay. Anyway, for 1467, I don't know what happened sa syllabus. Kanhimo siyang lease of service. But anyway, it referred to 1467, and 1467 according to your wonderful book and according to the scammer law, according to the civil code, it's actually about contract for a piece of work. And if we will read this one, 1467, a contract for the delivery at a certain price of an article which the vendor in the ordinary course of his business manufactures or procures for the general market, whether the same is on hand at the time or not, is a contract of sale. But if the goods are to be manufactured specifically for the customer and upon his special order and not for the general market, it is a contract for a piece of work. So actually 1467 is just a contract of sale or a contract for a piece of work. So if nagmass production mo dira, it is for the general public, contract of sale. If by order siya, imo siyang orderon and it's specific gyud siya, dili siya for everyone. Like for example, ako ang tiil kay size 15, dako gid kayo ako ang tiil, or size 4 ako pero ganahan ko og 6 inches na stiletto heels, and then ako ang kontakon ng manufacturer og heels. Hello, heels low, charot. Hey, kanang I need you to make something kanang bonga bells. So it will now become a contract for a piece of work because it is made upon a special order. So yun lang po. Diba? It's very easy if imo siyang i-apply in real life situations. So if it is specifically done at the order of another, it is a contract for a piece of work. Okay. So why do we have to distinguish the two of them? We have to distinguish them because na different treatment as to the risk of loss and whether or not it is within the statute of frauds. So if it is a contract of sale, it is within the statute of frauds. If it is a contract for a piece of work, it is not within the statute of frauds. And what do we mean by it being within the ambit of the statute of frauds? Remember statute of frauds? Okay, so what is statute of frauds? Kindly comment down below for your answer. Okay, so I would know if naminaw bagid mo sa ako ang scammer lo diri or wala mo naminaw. Okay? So, risk of loss, in a contract of sale, the risk of loss is borne by the buyer, but in a contract for a piece of work, the risk of loss before delivery is borne by the worker or contractor, not by the employer or the person who ordered it. So that's a difference. For you to be able to be enlightened, read your book. It's all there. Now let's go to sale versus barter. Barter, hashtag Cebu Barter Community, hashtag hello. In a barter, diba? In a barter, in a contract of sale, you give a sum of money, a price or its equivalent, but in a barter, you are actually giving something. You're not giving a price. You're not giving a sum of money, but what you're actually doing is you swap. You barter something which is of equivalent value, or depende sa inyo if it's not of equivalent value. So the intention of the intention determines the nature of the contract if it is manifest. Otherwise, look into the value of the thing as opposed to the monetary equivalent. Okay, so according to Article 1638, by the contract of barter or exchange, one of the parties binds himself to give one thing in consideration of the other's promise to give another thing. So, for more information, ato mo sa Cebu Barter Community, kay naagi dito ang barter. So, naa dito ang essence sa barter. Kung ganahan mo makakita og essence sa sale, ara mo sa mga online sellers, ara mo sa Let's Eat Buy or sa Habhab Cebu. Yeah, go to Habhab Cebu, like their page. My friend manages Habhab Cebu. Walay discount, mga niya tag discount. Okay, so mo na siya. Or if you want to know more about auction, adto mo sa Bidda Cebu. O di ba daghan kayong mga sales agency and credit transactions kan hitabo karon because of COVID with Dap. Wow, how awesome is life. Anyways, next is Dashon and payment. Sales versus Dashon and payment, which is actually the same as Dashon and Pago, because it's like Espanol. It's Spanish sardines. The relevant provision there is Article 1245, Dashon and payment, whereby property is alienated to the creditor in satisfaction of a debt in money. So unsa man ni siya. So actually, in a Dashon and payment, there is actually a pre-existing debt, and then you give something to satisfy or to settle that debt. So how do we distinguish sale from Dashon and Pago? In a sale, there is no pre-existing credit, while in Dashon and Pago, there is a pre-existing credit, or there is a pre-existing obligation or pre-existing debt. Sale creates an obligation, whereas Dashon and Pago will extinguish the obligation. So again, sale will create an obligation because diba, after the perfection, you have an obligation to, you have a bilateral obligation to do your respective obligations. Diba? Obligation to do, diba? An obligation is a juridical necessity to do or not to do. That is the question. Okay, next, sale, the cost or consideration is the price and the delivery of the object, while in Dashon and Pago, the cost is the extinguishment of the obligation. In sale, there is greater freedom of fixing the price, while in Dashon and Pago, there is less freedom in fixing the price because, diba, you are dependent on the value of your utang. So, mana siya. Any questions so far? Kindly comment down below, and don't forget to like and charot lang yun. Okay, so absolute sale versus conditional sale versus contract to sell. So yeah, absolute sale, the sale is absolute, meaning there are no conditions attached. Yeah, the title or ownership passes to the buyer upon delivery of the thing sold, because again, in a contract of sale, delivery is very important, and that's why importante ang mga Grab delivery, Lala Move, charot, o unsa pa na dira. So shout out po sa ating mga frontliner na nagti-deliver. Yes. Yeah. If it's a conditional sale, from the word itself, conditional, there is a condition. Mura na siya og mamahalin kita. Kung ano pa ni siya, kung absolute sale man siya, mamahalin kita, maging sino ka man, no conditions attached. But if it's conditional, mamahalin kita pag minahal mo rin ako. Yan, my condition, diba? Nay conditioner. Charot, pantin. Okay, murag akong buhok, tsaka siya, kay wala siya naka-conditioner. Anyway, moving on. So, conditional, there is a condition. The sale contemplates a contingency, and in general, well, the contract is subject to a certain condition, usually full payment of a purchase price. You can say, oh, ownership will not transfer to you unless you have fully paid the purchase price. So you can do that. It's usually applied to things which are mahalon. Okay, yung mga mahal, sana all mahal, charot. The delivery of the thing sold does not transfer ownership until the condition is fulfilled. So for example, you have a wonderful house built on a lot, and then diba, a house costs you 1,000,000 pesos, and sometimes after paying for the equity, or after paying for a certain amount, you can the contract will say, oh, you can transfer. But then even if you are already possessing the property, it will not automatically mean that you are already owning the property, because it may be subject to a condition. It may be a conditional sale. So it may be subject to a condition. Anyway, later on, we will be discussing about the difference between possession and ownership, because possession and ownership are two different things. You may possess a property, but you may not necessarily be the owner thereof. For example, if kadto ang ato ang kontrata, if it is a conditional sale, so for example, sakyanan, 'di ba? Mo man siya ang usual, 'di ba? 5 years to pay, but then pwede na nimo siyang i-take home ang sakyanan mo, bayad lang kag piso nga down payment. Charot, pila man imo monthly. So kana siya, you're already possessing the car, but it does not mean nga naimpas na imong utang. It does not mean that you already own the car, because wala pa nimo siya nahuman og bayad, 'di ba? What will happen if naingon siya na, oh, there's already transfer of ownership? Di alkansi si seller. Nga naman, di naman kagukod si seller ni buyer, kaya na-transfer naman ang ownership. Diba? So, muna siya. Again, conditional, it's subject to a certain condition. Usually, the condition is for the full payment of the purchase price. Okay? Absolute sale, mamahalin kita maging sino ka man, no conditions attached whatsoever. And then you have a contract to sell. The first element there is the consent or the meeting of the minds. The first element is lacking because it is a contract to sell. So you have a contract, so you will be selling it later on. The prospective seller explicitly reserves the transfer of title or the right to the prospective buyer, meaning the seller does not consent or transfer ownership subject to the contract to sell upon the happening of event, which is the full payment of the purchase price. So, in this case, for example, if A wants to sell his piece of land to B for 1 million and B is ready and able to pay the purchase price in full, the contract to be executed is deed of absolute sale because the seller is to transfer the purchase of such undertaking and is no longer subject to the condition, because after all, the buyer is to pay the purchase price in full. If the buyer would pay the purchase price in 10 equal installments, let's say for example 100,000 per month, the seller's obligation to transfer the ownership would take place only after the condition is met. That is, after the payment of 10 equal monthly payments, and in that case, what is executed is a contract to sell. Okay. So, in a conditional sale, take note that even if there is delivery, there is no transfer of ownership until and unless you have already satisfied the condition. Okay, so that's it for today. 33 minutes, I think that's enough. Scammerloo, and then I will continue. I will continue with consent. Parties, you can give their consent, and then let's have a very brief discussion on that. Consent, and then after consent, we'll go to the object. So what are the qualities? And then after object, we will go to, it's very easy. No, actually, this is just a review of your Oblicon RFBT1, and I'm sure you are already masters of obligations and contracts, so no need for us to worry. And then consent, object, and then cost, diba? The COC, cost, the price or its equivalent, how determined, etc., etc. And then after that, we will go to the natural elements versus accidental elements. Okay, so do you have questions, clarifications, violent reactions? If you have questions, kindly subata ka na o ipadala sa ato ang Dropbox. Charot, wala tayong Dropbox. So you can PM me or you can ask your classmates for clarifications regarding that matter. Anyway, nag-awa na sa dingiro. Anyway, I have already checked and graded your wonderful exams, and I'm not sure if it will be reflected sa ang inyuhang Moodle. But then, yeah, and I think all of you submitted it na lay uban nga merg na double sila because it said nga na ay 34 attempts. So 4 of you kay ang naa siya completed and then na siya in process. But anyway, congratulations to us because we did it. We survived LMS. Charot lang. So na-accomplish na tong LMS. Okay? So yeah, that's it. 안녕. 再见.